Blog Talk Radio. Race fans, y'all know what time it is. It's Race Chat Live. Glad to have you on this Tuesday evening as we get ready to talk a little bit about what's happened this past week in racing and, of course, what's going to happen there in the future. All the big stories and all can be found here tonight on Race Chat Live. Glad to have each of y'all a part of the program. Let me bring in my partner in crime, Ms. Lee Reed. How are you, Ms. Lee? I think we should be getting you in now. There we go.
Yep, I'm here.
Ms. Lee. All right, glad to have you on board here. I guess we'll be waiting on our other partner in crime, Chaz Taylor.
Yep, he's got terrorist duty.
Yeah. Well, another weekend of racing. We're inching a little bit closer to the playoffs. There's some guys outside looking in. There's other drivers who can basically control their own destiny. I think that Chase Elliott comes to mind when I speak of a driver who can control his own destiny and make his way into the playoffs via a win. Of course, there is always the crapshoot at the super speedway races. That would be Daytona.
Yeah.
Cut off race to the playoffs. I mean, there's a few drivers right here that I'm kind of looking at. Bubba Wallace, Michael McDowell, Chase Elliott, AJ Allmendinger, Daniel Suarez. Those names are all in the hat. Of course, there'll be some other drivers that I think are definitely capable of winning such a crapshoot. And Miss Lee, I mean, when we talk about Daytona, it's a craft there, right? I mean, it's Ricky Stenhouse has already raced his way in. He's a craft racer, right?
Right.
One driver that comes to mind is really, really good at super speedways. Michael McDowell, who's on the cusp. A pretty good Daytona 500 winner. Pretty good super speedway racer. We've got Bubba Wallace. He's won at Talladega. It seems like every time he gets a win, they're outside the playoffs. This guy can't win before the playoffs. He can't win to get into the playoffs. Not sure if he's going to be everybody's darling and sweetheart rolling into this. Between Daniel Suarez and Bubba Wallace, I mean, you know, one of them's definitely going to go. When I mean go home. Not going to make
right.
it. Not going to hit that 17th, that 16th playoff spot. This weekend, of course, Miss Lee, we had some really good racing. I think the Truck Series put on a great race. The Xfinity Series, without a doubt. Man, that reminded me of the old Brad Keselowski chasing down Marcus Ambrose at Watkins Glen. A guy by the name of Sage Karam. Sage Karam.
Yeah.
The kid put on a clinic. Like, I was expecting him to wash up in the closing laps, and he did. He mowed the grass one time, and it cost him. But you know, outside of that, the Xfinity Series, that was just an amazing race. Richmond, you know, I heard it compared, Miss Lee, to a Formula One race. It's like NASCAR's Formula One race is Richmond, and it does kind of feel that way, does it not, Miss Lee? I mean, you know, it's kind of typically a strategy race, a fuel mileage. We watched what Martin Truex Jr. did. Of course, imagine if he had fresh tires during all that. Like, did we cancel Martin Truex Jr. out of a win? I know that he was behind on the first scheduled pit stops, right? He was marked somewhere in the back. I think something happened there on the opening laps of the race that kind of set him back. But outside of that, the whole two-pit strategy, I just don't know if it worked to his benefit. He obviously had a fast enough car to stay from going a lap down there. At the end, just kind of you wonder what he could have done with fresher tires, right? I mean, obviously this guy MTJ is he seems to be the name most spoken of at this point in time, Miss Lee. What do you think about MTJ maybe being a favorite as we roll into the playoffs?
Well, he has the potential. He's got this whole new attitude thing going. He could. I mean, if you look at the past couple of years, he's done pretty well. I don't know. I'm still waiting to see how the next few races play out, and we'll see from there. But he could potentially be a spoiler.
Right. Right, and I believe so. I would definitely have him in the top 4 right now if I were to decide who would be at Phoenix in the playoffs. I would most definitely have MTJ penciled in, and that's something I look forward to next week. I believe next week we're going to make some bold predictions. Mark your calendars for that, because that should get wild. So, the race was dominated by Ford. RFK. I don't know when the last time that we could say Ford come in and dominated a race. I don't have that marked on my bingo card this year. As a matter of fact, I felt like Ford was three manufacturers off from the best. So that would mean Toyota, Chevrolet, and then Ford. Because it definitely seems like there's 2 different Chevrolet engine departments out there, which it is. It's ECR. And, of course, Hendrick Motorsports. They are 2 separate engine programs, unlike the other guys, which is Ford, which is Roush Yates Racing, and Toyota, which is all run by TRD, for those who are maybe not as up to par to some of this as what we are. So we'll make sure that we clarify that. And what I meant by that, that basically Ford has been back of the pack, stinking up the show, found on the road dead, all the funny little things that you could come up with for Ford. But let me tell you something. Something happened. Something clicked. And we've been watching this. RFK has actually made our show. We have talked about RFK, I would say, Miss Lee, for 10 weeks straight?
Absolutely.
So this is no drop the mic. We couldn't believe this happened. This come out of nowhere. I don't believe that's anything that fits the description of what we've seen we've talked all this negative press about SHR, right? And they can't hit on a lick. Penske seems off in left field somewhere looking at Dandelion, and here's RFK, forging ahead, making gains every week. This was Brad Keselowski's race to win, Miss Lee. Go ahead.
Even the national coverage is talking about the difference that Brad Keselowski has made at RFK, and his leadership and his skills and his mentorship abilities. Just look at what Chris Buescher's done. Chris has always been a talented driver. But look at how far he's come since Brad got involved with RFK. And now he's locked into the playoffs.
Right. Which he had a considerable lead there going in. I believe, 100-plus points to the good.
Mm-hmm.
Most fines are 100 points. So, he's definitely looking good. I think Brad's looking good. We didn't get to see a lot last year. The improvements didn't seem as relevant, I should say, because Brad Keselowski had that 100-point penalty given to him pretty early in the season there, completely ruined the 2022 race season. And what I mean by ruined is, Ms. Lee, it covered up the positive effects, the actual progressive movement that RFK was making, the gains they were making were not as relevant last year. We've seen times of promise, right?
Right. We noticed it. We noticed it. We saw it. But it was a team building year.
Right.
So we're seeing the cumulative effect of that this year.
I agree. The cumulative effect has definitely been in the positive direction. And this team right here, watch out. Richmond has a lot of similarities to Phoenix. And I think that cars that were particularly strong here at Richmond may very well have a good fighting chance in Phoenix. So we'll see how, going through the playoffs, how this works in the favor of Brad and Chris Buescher. I expect these two teams to work very close together. Like, you're not going to see one team throwing one thing and then the other team doing the opposite to see where they hit. I think that these teams will run, they will live together, and they will die together, right? Whatever's in one car is going to be in the other, and they're going to try to push their way through. The team, if there was ever an Underberg moment rolling into the playoffs, if there was ever that moment where the little guy seems to have a really, really good chance, I think that light is shining on RFK right now, Miss Lee.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I would not be surprised to see at least one of their cars in the Final Four.
Wow, that's a bold prediction, right? You said something earlier about mentors, and we've got to go on. We've got to take up the next subject. I wish Taz would hurry up and get his ass in here. So we talked about. You said something about mentorship. Brad Keselowski's owned the team before. It was a pretty successful team. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, he scouted Tyler Reddick. Can you believe that? Like, the guy's had an eye for talent for a while, and Ryan Blaney drove for him too. So there you go. Right. I mean, let's be loud and clear, right? Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, these guys, these cat daddies have come through BKR, Brad Keselowski Racing. I believe there's been a couple of others as well. Even Ross Chastain, maybe. I'm not going to seal the deal on that, but there is another hot driver that's capable of winning on Sunday now that fits that. And I'm at a loss right now. But anyway, when he was coming up through Junior Motorsports was not necessarily a successful program at the time. But Junior had to have put his hand around Brett Keselowski and said, look, man, we're going to grow this thing together. If I could just, jump 20 years ahead, 15, 18 years ahead, that's where Brett Keselowski is right now with Chris Buescher and the whole RFK team. Because first of all, there's been a remodeling of Roush Fenway for several years. Like, they done pulled up the tile 3 or 4 times. They couldn't make up their mind which was what color they wanted the side of the building. But now there's actual headways being made, and I think that this is something, as Alan Bestwick says, in his call, things that he's learned from his mentor. This is how he was taught how to create and how to run a successful business. Remember, Junior Motorsports was really still young at the beginning time when I think Kelly Byers maybe was the driver, or man, I wish I could remember her, because I believe he's a crew chief now. Man, if we ever needed Mike Perricone, tonight would be the night, so we could send stats on the keyboard there. But I believe he became a crew chief or whatever. But anyway, Hoffman. It was Shane Hoffman or something like that. He was the driver. Of course, Junior Motorsports was only, I believe, a truck series team at the time. Took a big chance on Brett Keselowski, who at the time was driving for his father. Had, probably not made anybody that wasn't a diehard fan. They probably never noticed him or anything like that. But now, here he is, a champion, a NASCAR Cup champion, and able to turn around one of the most dominant teams at one point in time, and got them turned back around in the right direction. Now, Miss Lee, I do believe we may have somebody who is called in. He might be our partner in crime. If not,
Taz,
it could be the long-lost Peg Moore. Oh, Taz has walked in the door.
Taz is calling in,
okay,
yeah.
Taz, we're wasting a lot of time here as I was trying to drag out the first subject so you wouldn't miss much. I'm glad you are available and able to join us. We'll try to work through this a little bit quicker now. But so we were talking about Chris Buescher. We were talking about RFK. Of course, that's the headline rolling into tonight. We're still on that. What are your thoughts real quick? Of course, we covered, the leaps and bounds that RFK has made. This wasn't something that just happened overnight. We've actually talked about RFK for 10 straight weeks, I believe, here on the program. No big surprise, right? Taz, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it was only a matter of time for RFK to get in victory lane. I mean, when we went over our power rankings almost about 2 months ago at this point, they were one of our top 4 teams, and it was weird to think of that because of the fact that they weren't winning, but they did enough consistently wise in terms of their finishes, and not just in, say, Chris Buescher, but also Brett Keselowski. And like you said, this wasn't something that came in through over time. Obviously, teams had to adjust to the new car, which I think threw off the veteran drivers in a sense, like Keselowski, like Hamlin. Harvick is another one. Truex, another one too. And obviously, these drivers are now owners, such as Hamlin and Keselowski themselves. They're going to look into more in depth of these cars, and eventually something's going to grab at their heels. And it looks like, and obviously, Hamlin's team was able to capitalize on that, and Hamlin himself is in the same deal. But I think RFK finally have hit their strut this year. And last year, I mean, not only did they have the struggles of their own, but you have to also think they were also nailed with that big old penalty to Brad that not only did they put themselves in a hole, they got into a bigger hole with that big hole penalty that they basically couldn't get themselves out of. So they were dealing with struggles on top of struggles. So I feel like they've climbed a huge mountain, and for the most part, they've successfully climbed it. Now it's just getting to the peak of it, and I don't expect them to be at their peak anytime soon, but I would say their peak is coming. Would it be next year? Probably. Maybe 2 years. Who knows? But if it keeps going the way it's going, I can see either Chris Buescher snagging his second win or Brad Keselowski is going to find victory lane.
Yeah, there's actually a couple of tracks here going forward that favor RFK and Brad Keselowski's driving style. Of course, Daytona being one, and Michigan. Like I'm sure Brad Keselowski is rolling into this week. Put this with Michigan's circled on his calendar, just as similar as Chris Buescher said in his interview that this race had been circled on their calendar from last year's third-place finish. So definitely we'll keep our eye on that. Now, Keselowski's name is kind of in this in or out situation. I guess with 4 races to go, 12th is not necessarily the most secure position, but, Keselowski's kind of got to be confident that things are going to work out for him.
I was just going to say, there's only 4 races and 4 spots left. At this point, you have to win or go home. You can't guarantee yourself on points. I mean, I know last year we were looking at possibly more race winners than playoff spots available, and luckily last year only one driver got in on points, only because of Kurt Busch, getting out because of injury. But last year, I mean, really, if you think about last year, there could have been 16 winners, 16 playoff spots. We're looking at that right now. But at least with this time around, there's that possibility of a repeat winner, which means there could be somebody getting in on points and not by, somebody withdrawing from the playoffs because of injury.
Right, and that's where this will count down. Like if we have a multiple-time winner that goes into this race, that wins, then we will definitely be bringing somebody in on the point side. And as I look at this right now, and I see that, Chase Elliott's already up to 20th, right? This guy's missed half the season now, almost. And he's already raced his way up to 20th spot. Are we going to circle Chase Elliott into the chase? I mean, you've got a couple of road course races coming up. Of course, you've got the Daytona race. And you got Michigan next week, which I'm not sure what Chase's stats are at Michigan. We'll find that out later on tonight in Kaz's pick. But it definitely almost feels like the media is giving Chase Elliott one of those transfer spots. He's going to have to go out there and earn it nonetheless. But that does leave several of these drivers outside looking in, Miss Lee. Let's bring you back in the fold. You've got Todd Gibbs, A.J. Allmendinger, Daniel Suarez. Those are 17th through 19th. You've got Alex Bowman, Austin Cindric, right? Do we count out a Penske car? Justin Haley, who's got some terrible news. Double A battery. Ryan Preece, right? Who kind of feels like Ryan Preece could be a favorite going into the Daytona race? You're talking about Stewart-Haas Racing. Stewart-Haas is always strong.
But everyone that you just mentioned has to win to get in.
They do. They really do. They really do.
They really do. Even Chase. I can't see NASCAR not figuring out a way to get Chase into the Final Four.
There's 3 spots left.
At least into the playoffs, because, I mean, he's only 40 points back, which, that's basically a race without the stages. But, I mean, even with that, it's, like I said before, the amount of races left equals up to the amount of playoff spots, which is 4. And Chase is basically in that one race behind scenario, like in baseball, you're one game behind, that sort of deal. So really, Chase is sitting like 5 races behind with 4 races left.
NASCAR will figure that out.
So, yeah, I believe I said there was 3 open spots. I actually believe it's 4. Kevin Harvick has not got a win this year, has he? I don't believe so.
No, not yet.
There's actually 4, still 4 available slots with 4 races to go that can win and get in. Definitely some of the names that are on that list, Eric Jones, some of the guys from the bottom, Chase Briscoe. These guys are bidding for their chance for a late catch up. I guess Alex Bowman, which is really strange, right? Chase Elliott, I believe, missed more time than Alex Bowman, but Chase has actually done a little bit better. So I think all resources from Hendrick Motorsports goes into getting Chase a win at one of these road course races. The one thing that I think is in favor as we roll into the playoff situation is the lack of caution. That's the lack of stage caution. So I think that will kind of keep a wild card at bay at Indy and Watkins Glen as you kind of evaluate how these runs tend to happen and how they race the road course a little bit different now without the stage breaks. I foresee true racing. It could have been a crapshoot or something for one of these guys that are near the back, especially like AJ or Chase or somebody like that. Just playing out the pit strategies correctly or something to that. I think it's really they're gonna have to race for it. They're gonna have to earn it the old way. So we'll see as they try to as we're closing in, right? I mean, we're more than halfway through the season. We're 4 races away from the cutoff. That means that 14 races left in the season. We should start finding out a lot more about silly season as we've getting into the finishing of the summer. But any other thoughts, guys, on who's in, who's out? Where are you going? Where are you going?
No, I still say we'll see at least one of the RFK cars in the Final 4.
Right. What about Ty Gibbs, y'all? Ty Gibbs, kind of a quiet rookie season. There he is in the 17th spot. Anybody giving him a chance in Hades of making the playoffs? Pretty good road course driver in the Xfinity Series.
I can see him making the playoffs. I don't necessarily see him getting very far.
Yeah, me neither. Most of these guys in the back, they're going to pretty much stay back there. That's why, Chris Buescher sitting at least 13th in points. Kind of the odd guy out. Like he would really have to show a lot of progress to make it to the Final 4. A lot of things would have to go his way. But, you got a couple of races in there. Road course racing he's really good at, right? We've said it here. He's one of the best road course racers in NASCAR. And then, of course, you've got Talladega, right? And you've got a couple other short tracks. You've got Martinsville. For some reason, Chevrolet kind of dominates. Chevrolet and Toyota kind of dominate. Martinsville, it'd be great to see if maybe this new package, which could actually set RFK back, right? RFK's found something that all the other Fords haven't found. And now they're going in and tinkering with the rules package and trying a different splitter and trying. I think today they raced without the diffuser on the back of the race car. So a lot of different things that they're throwing at the Richmond test this week. A lot of things that I believe the front splitter has been approved already, and we'll see that in the package later this year or possibly during the playoffs. I'm not really sure yet. But any other wild predictions maybe for getting in? Austin Cindric, a pretty good road course racer. You've got Chris is already in. You got Keselowski. You've got Ty Gibbs, who's been pretty good. You got Chase Elliott. Bowman, I'm not too sure if he's really good at road course racing. You've got 2 road course races coming up. It's going to kind of help decide who is in and who is out. Chase Elliott, does he race his way in, Miss Lee?
NASCAR will make sure he does.
You have said that several times here tonight. What about you, Taz? Chase Elliott, does he race his way in?
I'm going to go with Lee, and I've already made my call about that a couple of weeks ago when he's going to make the playoffs if he doesn't by that time.
Right. So I figure somewhere probably between Indy and Watkins Glen is where you're going to see Chase Elliott win. They've got the right parts, all the right pieces.
I've said if he doesn't win by Daytona, it's going to happen.
Oh, well, you would have to have help to win at Daytona, and nobody's going to help Chase Elliott win Daytona. Nobody. Not to get in. This Daytona is not the typical super speedway race. This is all hell's going to bust loose Daytona. This is
absolutely.
This is the Daytona 499. If y'all remember the old Aaron's 499, I've been doing a lot of them. This is almost as big as. So I guess it would be the 400, Pepsi 400 or Coca-Cola 4. No, it was the Pepsi 400. That's right. I'm growing up, but So fireworks for sure. It may not be 4th of July, but we will have fireworks at Daytona. They made sure of that by putting it at the cutoff race. Justin Haley comes to mind there, guys. How about let's move on into the CW, because I know we got a little bit to discuss on silly season. A whole lot of stuff's done happened since the last time we were on the board together. But let's talk about the CW deal real quick in the Xfinity Series. I think I've said on here in the next couple of weeks we were going to get some shocking news. Once again, I did not have CW Xfinity Series on my bingo card. Did anybody else see that one coming? I'll start with you, Taz, and then you can float over to Miss Lee.
No, especially when I've always viewed CW as like one of those like family program shows, show channels or whatever you want to call it, kind of like a TBS sort of thing. I never would have expected CW, but hey, it's good. I see it as a plus for NASCAR. It's another outlet for them to go on, especially when it's a 7-year deal starting in 2025, if I remember right. And it gives the Xfinity Series their own channel outlet, if you think about it. I mean, you have the Truck Series, who's got Fox all year round, well, primarily Fox Sports 1. Xfinity usually shares with the Cup Series. So at that point, you kind of sit there and say, well, is their viewership numbers really because of the Cup guys, or they're sharing the same Cup channel? Now they have their own network, so it's solely just them. And so now you would have to think, is CW going to draw the same amount of numbers as like NBC or Fox, like the Cup Series itself would get?
So, we go back to the very old discussion of NASCAR being on over the air versus cable. And it's gotten to the point now where with streaming and everything, it's getting to be kind of a moot point, because pretty much everybody's streaming something so they can get pretty much everything. My CW channel here where I live, I get a very bad signal. So I'm kind of like,
guess what?
Okay.
No, guess what?
What?
You will have an app that is available and free to everybody. So
Well,
you will
that-
be
yeah.
able to download that app and stream through CW
Right.
NASCAR racing. So they killed two birds with one stone, Miss Lee.
No, you've got a very good point there, because I have Prime Video, which carries the CW app, and I also have Sling, which I believe also carries the CW. So I should be covered either way. But that said,
but may I remind you though that it is free. It is a free app. Since CW is over the air, there is no sign up fee for carrying the CW app. This is to my knowledge of what I've been told that how this is going to work. So everybody in the entire world will have access to CW's app, where they will have basically NASCAR Xfinity Series available to them on demand via live and or recorded. So that's the move that shocked me more than anything, Ms. Lee, is that there is going to be free public access to the Xfinity Series. So not only are you going to be flipping through looking for your Dawson's Creek or the Mama's House, but now you're going to stop and you're going to say, wait a minute, whoa, this is on CW? This is NASCAR. Oh, next thing you know, they're sitting there 20 minutes on the edge of their seat. Noah Gregson's kind of with his bowl cut, giving the finger to everybody. All of a sudden, hey, the whole family sitting around the boob tube, they are into CW, right? And
Right.
You know, I believe that we're going to connect to people, to an environment, to younger crowds that we've never been able to connect before, because you had to find Xfinity on ESPN, or you had to know that it was going to be on USA, or you had to know, you had to have access to that. We are going to have Xfinity Series racing in every home in the entire nation just because it's CW. Just because it's CW. And CW is a popular channel that a lot of people rely on.
And I agree, Chris, with the idea that there's potentially a younger crowd there, because if you look at the shows that the CW carries, that's who they appeal to, is a younger crowd. I don't watch the CW a lot. My local CW station is affiliated with our local Fox station. So if there's a sporting event like baseball and whatnot and going on and it runs over and the local news isn't able to go on the Fox station, they go to our CW. So that's the most that I watch, the local CW. But like I said, knowing their program lineup, that is very much a younger crowd. So you have a very valid point there.
Yes, we're going to go flock to CW to watch our race. Think about the thousands of young people that are going to look for the reruns of some cool show that's aired on their over-the-air freeway channel, and then boom, Xfinity Series. Imagine the 7 to 9-year-old.
Time out. That's where you guys are both wrong. CW has their primetime lineup. They have a lot of original programming. This is not your local UHF station that, showed like the old movies and stuff and reruns and stuff. This is not MeTV. CW has a ton of original programming, and that's what I'm saying about the younger crowd that they attract, because it's a lot of supernatural and that kind of stuff.
Like the CW, like the Flash and Before Superman was Superman, that show. Yeah, of course it is. The reason why I'm so far out of touch with it is because I'm 25 years past the age to watch CW. That's what's
Right.
going to make this very interesting of getting us back to that channel. And I believe, wasn't it maybe Jesse Smollett? Didn't he have, wasn't there a popular show that
No,
he was on?
that was on. No, that was on Fox.
That was on Fox. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. So that's where we are. CW Xfinity Series. I had brought up the question, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, whether or not Xfinity would feel like that's a kind of a lost investment to continue sponsoring the series. And at what point in time, this is really a question though here. I want your thoughts on Xfinity. But the real question is, what is the Xfinity Series? Like, where is it? Where, it used to be the Grand National Series, right? What is it? If we had to market away from Xfinity or Nationwide, we actually had to call it something similar to what we do with Cup Series. What would we call Xfinity? What is it? Is it the Grand National Series? Is that still the official call letter, the Grand National Series?
That's something.
That's a good question, huh?
That is something I would say leaning towards Grand National, because everyone would know what it is. Because obviously, I know what you're getting at, Chris, because obviously you have Xfinity, you had Nationwide. Before that, it was always referenced as the Busch Series. So,
but you went back before that, it was Busch Grand National Series.
Yeah, what can you rename the series without having like a sponsor tied to it? And you would have to think Grand National, or they would have to think of something probably stupid, like here's the Cup Light Series. Like, what the fuck is the Cup Light Series?
Yeah. I love it. Good job, Chad Taylor. Somebody send that guy a Butterfinger. He didn't fumble that at all. Jeez Louise. I mean, he just caught me so off guard with that F word. Wow. Yeah. Definitely. Man. That's the way to get into it there, Chad Taylor. Any more thoughts?
I don't know what you would call it.
I mean, obviously I think it was the Grand National Series beforehand, maybe the Sportsman Series or something to that. Of course, Cup Series, they rebranded. They were no longer the Nextel Cup or the Monster Energy Series. They become the Cup Series, and I think that is a significant move in the right direction, so that it has some kind of brand identity with these cars. The Truck Series is the Truck Series, right? It's the Camping World Truck Series, but we've left this, very popular series without the correct branding. Xfinity, what are your thoughts on that? Whether or not they want to continue to invest a lot of money into basically a channel that's going to be a free channel over the air? That seems like those seem counterintuitive to each other. I would like your thoughts on if you believe maybe Xfinity is in the future of the CW series. Is it the CW series? Like, is that what we're going to call it? Is this the end to Xfinity, and now it's going to be called the CW series? Because I don't like that at all.
Well, when I first started following NASCAR, it was the Nationwide series. And then it went to the Xfinity series. So could it potentially go to the CW series, especially with the long-term contract? It's a possibility.
How about the CW Dash series?
I think the Grand National. I mean, if you're bringing in like the Dash, there was already the Goodies Dash series. This is a elevated class above that. So I don't know how you reclassify the class, but there's complete generations of fans that never even knew that it was called anything other than the Busch Series or the Xfinity Series. And as a matter of fact, I would like to do more homework behind that, because If I'm not mistaken, before Winston come on board, like the Cup Series was known as the Grand National Series. So somewhere or another, that lower level becomes that's something we'll just have to look at. Did you just find an empty refrigerator by one of your kids, Taz? What happened there? Definitely.
Oh no! My bad. I forgot to mute myself on that one.
You got to give us the inside scoop of what's going on, because as a parent, most of the time that's something.
So as I have warned you folks before, about half hour before showtime, just to quickly get off subject, then we gotta get back on. I have on the Amsterdam Mohawks Summer Collegiate Baseball team live broadcast right now, and they're currently in the East Division Finals, where the winner of this game goes on to the League Championship Best of 3 series starting tomorrow, and they're up 2-0 in top of the 8th, but they kind of blew themselves an easy one. So yeah. But anyways, back to our racing category with CW, the Xfinity, and the Cup Light Stupid Series. For the bad naming on that one.
My bad. If I would turn off my freaking mute button, then y'all might have actually heard everything that I just said. But no, let's move on. Obviously, this is something that's ongoing, and we'll put the pieces together as we know more. But it's definitely a subject that I believe we won't. We'll have to cross this subject again later on down the road. Subject number 3? Does the points leader retire? This is a silly season subject for us. SVG news has come out. AA batteries come out on some news that he's got like 30 days to decide. I mean, do you send like what type of letter does your employer send to you that says, hey, are we going to renegotiate this contract or what? You know, like, are you holding up the boat? Do you have that grab? I mean, is your bacon that good, Smithfield? So I don't know. There's a lot of questions with that one. And Denny Hamlin, you know, are we running right into the Kyle Busch situation without questions to Denny of whether or not he is locked in at Joe Gibbs Racing? I mean, you know, there's a couple of question marks going on. And then out of nowhere, out of left field, today we find out that Noah Gragson will be probably released from his contract as John Hunter Nemechek plans to take over the 42 car next season. Of course, this is Legacy MC, Legacy Motor Club, with the owners of Maury Gallagher and Jimmy Johnson, and now team president Cal Wells, who has destroyed everything he's ever touched. They are looking for a marquee driver, and it looks like TRD has a spot for John Hunter Nemechek. But what does this mean about the 19? What is this? Is this the guarantee that Martin Truex Jr. is going to come back? You know, I mean, he's leading the points. He's a favorite for the championship, I feel like, right now. You know, I don't see how this guy steps away, but, I mean, Peyton Manning stepped away after a Super Bowl win. Elway stepped away after a Super Bowl win. Barry Sanders stepped away and didn't even have a Super Bowl. What's going on here in silly season? Let's talk about it. Taz Taylor.
So, with Truex, I would think another year for him would do good. The other thing I would think of is, with this move of Legacy going from Chevy to Toyota, and it looks like the possibility of Gragson being released with that move, at first it kind of sat on me, because we talked about SVG, right? About a few weeks ago, about how he could possibly be a free agent looking to come to the Cup Series. Obviously, at this point, it's basically all but confirmed on his end that he's going to be a free agent trying to go to the Cup Series. Of course, with him, he's going to be looking at Chevy teams because with the supercars, he's with Chevy to begin with. So you have to sit here and think what Chevy teams are going to be available. Well, when the news of Justin Haley came out saying that he's going from Kaulig to Rick Ware, which that's the dumbest move for his career. He could have done a lot better, but
Amen.
I think I first thought of Kaulig could probably grab SVG. Then Chris showed the whole Gregson could be released from Legacy when they switched from the Chevy to Toyota after this year. And immediately it dawned on me. I was like, all right, I have to throw SVG out the window because Kaulig and Gregson did have a relationship. I think it was a good working relationship last year when Gregson made select starts for the Kaulig 16 car last year. So I would feel like if Gregson is going to stay with Chevy, I believe he's the top guy that Kaulig is going to grab. If Gregson's not it, I believe it's going to be SVG, but I am starting to believe that Gregson, if he leaves Legacy Motor Club, I would not be surprised if he goes to Kaulig.
All right, so
but
Adam Stern tweeted that Justin Marks said on SVG, if he's going to do this, it would only make sense that he does it with us. I can't access the article.
Whoa.
It's all about silly season, but there's that.
What the hell? So does this mean Red Bull? Is this the return of Red Bull?
Maybe.
Holy heck, man.
So they would have
no, it can't be. Busch Beer and Red
starter.
Bull are not going to be on. No, Busch Beer and Red Bull are not going to be on the same team. That's impossible. That would never happen.
Busch Beer and Red Bull are two totally different markets. Busch Beer is alcoholic. Red Bull is not. So
it really depends on you, though, right? I mean, if you
thing.
like speed, you take energy drinks. If you like feeling drunk and stupid, you drink beer.
but here's the thing, though. While you have to think of it this way too. Yeah, Busch is going to be with Trackhouse, but they're backing Ross Chastain. There's no backing with SVG, so SVG could easily probably grab Red Bull without having much of a problem or collision between Red Bull and Busch. I mean, look at Chase Elliott.
There's room.
Chase Elliott's freaking sponsorship collision doesn't make sense because I believe saying with his Hooters sponsorship, with his Hooters sponsorship, they're Pepsi, and he's a Coke driver now.
Right. You cannot get a Coke. You can't get that kind of Coke at Hooters. I'm sure you can get some kind of Coke, but not Coca-Cola. So, yeah, that is true. Like I'll stand here and welcome SVG in with open arms, but the problem to that is he better bring an ass load of money. And when I'm talking about an ass load of money, I'm talking about a truckload. Because it's going to cost $30 million just to get a damn charter.
Right, but are they still? Are they talking about fielding a third car or not?
That's a good question. Ooh, Mitch Lee.
Or are they buying a charter from somebody?
Are they firing Suarez? No, they wouldn't fire Suarez.
I mean,
I don't know.
No,
that's a good question.
I feel like Pitbull would try to keep Suarez because obviously they have that like Hispanic culture that they both share, and they're grabbing fan attention from that sort of culture.
Yeah, but is Pitbull more of a businessman?
That's, wow. I don't really know where to go because there's not very many charters out there, right? Rick Ware's not going to go down from a 2-car team. He's
Right.
Ford, and they've got Justin Haley. I believe that's probably all in the effort to stay a Ford team. So BJ McLeod, that's one of the ones that's open, right? Wood Brothers, they wanted to cash out and leave the sport.
Wood Brothers are not going to give up their charter.
No,
Front Row Motorsports has asked before to sell out. So
if you remember a few weeks ago, I did mention BJ McLeod's team could be losing their charter because I believe there is a rule in the NASCAR rule book somewhere, and I remember
3 years. So they have to stay relevant for 3 years.
Well, I remember Eric Estep saying that when I was watching his YouTube channel and his update on this. He said that if you fall in like the bottom 3 of the owner standings in terms of charters for like 3 years straight, you lose your charter. And I believe McLeod is basically on the bubble of that right now.
Yes, he is, and so is one of the Rick Ware cars. So you could see possibly a lease, maybe a 3rd-car team to, I believe that Ron Newman ride is actually, it's a 3rd RFK racing car. I really believe that. And I think Stuart Haas has some connection into there. So there's definitely, a place for maybe a Ford team to grow, but not necessarily a Chevrolet team right now, being that they are already losing, unless they push A.J. Allmendinger out. I don't know. That's, SVG to America, to the Cup Series. It just seems overdoing it, right? Like this guy, we don't even know what the hell he's going to do in an oval race. Of course, he has a little bit of oval experience. I'm not going to shade from that, but I just don't foresee him. I mean, when he's running a Cup race, he's going to run 25th at Richmond, right? He's not going to be competitive. So I really don't know why we're so on board of adding this guy to the Cup lineup all of a sudden. I think I wouldn't kind of a disgrace to the other drivers.
I wouldn't necessarily mark him as like a mid-pack driver on these short track there, Chris. I mean, if he adapts well, like some of these other road course to stock car drivers type deal, if you really think about it, Helio Castroneves is one of them, and he adapted well to the short oval. Trying to think of another one. Tony Kanaan. Tony Kanaan is another one. I mean, I know Tony Kanaan is basically a mid-card driver, but I'm trying to think of somebody else there that would fit along that line. But I mean,
my drunk camel's asses, and if it was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. This guy's he's going to have a learning curve. It's going to be 3 years before we see true success out of SVG, and we've seen drivers, Danica Patrick, Dario Franchitti, Christian Fittipaldi, Jacques Villeneuve. None of these guys have been successful. You're telling me none of those guys were more talented than SVG? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
man. But we're just putting too much into a European race car driver. He's going to come over here and realize that America fucking wins. We win on race day.
Chris, you're missing the point. Justin Marks said, if he's going to do this, it ought to be with us.
Yeah.
That doesn't say
and
it's
I would
a done
create,
deal.
Right,
it doesn't say
and
it's
I would
a done
create
deal.
a farm system. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's that point too.
They could either field an Xfinity Series car, or they could do what I think it was Gaunt Brothers did with Suarez the one year, where just field an open car on a weekly basis. I think JTG did this 1 year too with Ryan Preece.
Well, yeah, if they can find the funding for it, yeah.
Now, I'm still waiting on Helio Castroneves to get a Daytona 500 ride. You know, but SVG could come in and win a street court race where everything falls in his favor, and now all of a sudden, you know, this guy's going to take somebody's top freaking ride, right? And we can't get Helio Castroneves a Daytona 500 ride? Come on, man. I mean, seriously. It's not about bucks. It's about who they want in their system. I mean, I don't know. I've never been – these guys cannot come over here and invade NASCAR and think that they're just going to pop out success unless they bring them and all their buddies too, you know? Like, that's the only way is if we get a complete invasion. Hey, look, we've got pretty young fellas right now in the Cup Series. It's going to be at least another 20 years before we can get the invasion of open-wheel drivers and Trans Am drivers and whatnot. And as a matter of fact, that Trans Am V8 Supercar Series or whatever the hell it's called, they need to watch themselves because they're probably going to be bankrupt if they keep sending all their drivers over here to NASCAR to fail. Like, here's the crying towel. Where's Jimmy Spencer? Somebody get me off this mic.
All right. So, you know what? We're gonna give SVG a chance, just like we did Marcus Ambrose.
Right. What about Carson Hocevar? Is he going? Is he a done deal with Junior Motorsport?
The only other option SVG could probably have is if Spire kicks out Ty Dillon and puts him in the car.
Wow, there's one. Spire. That is the team I forgot, but they're probably not going anywhere with Corey LaJoie. I could see SVG over there. I could, but you know, there again, maybe they lease a charter to him or something. I don't know. That's a big. I've always thought that Spire, Trackhouse, and Colleague, they all have like this conspiring little thing together. They're all connected together in this big farmhouse. I believe. Did any of you guys ever feel that way? Like Trackhouse, Colleague, and Spire are all kind of interconnected with each other somehow?
Well, they kind of have to stick together against the big guys, don't they?
Yeah, very true. Very true, Miss Lee. Good point. Ring the bell on that one. That's a good point. That's a very, very, very good point. All right. I guess any other silly season props? Like I threw that one in there with Carson Hocevar. It's been rumored Dale Jr. Maybe going to Junior Motorsports. Not Dale Jr. Maybe going to Junior Motorsports. Oh, God, listen to me. Jeffrey Earnhardt has the possibility of going to Junior Motorsports. That should have already been a done deal. But anyway, Carson Hocevar, his name's getting kicked around a lot. He's coming off of a win, I guess. Was it this week? Who won the truck race this week?
You know, he did, and he basically set the track on fire again. But Carson,
that's right.
Carson's a lovable kid, but he's still got some learning to do.
Pat? Okay.
I dozed out for a second there.
Yeah, we were talking about Carson Hocevar. There is rumors that he may get a Cup ride, but it is kind of, I feel like after listening to today's podcast with DBC and all, it's basically a done deal. He's going to Junior Motorsports.
I feel like Hocevar going straight to the Cup Series is a big stretch. I feel like that could hurt him long term in his career.
But why not Zane Smith? Let's play devil's advocate. Why not Zane Smith? We said Zane Smith could do it. Why not Carson Hocevar?
I think with Zane Smith, the only difference with Zane Smith and Carson Hocevar, I think, is because Zane Smith has had a few races in the Cup Series on his belt. Whereas Hocevar, he made one start, but that was kind of like an emergency type start. So he was kind of like thrown into it, sort of.
Right.
And like I said, he's still got some learning to do.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right, well, I think that kicks the can about as much as we can on subject number 3. Let's move on into subject number 4. Sure, both have been boiling over in the last several weeks. It is funny how they kind of correlate with each other. But basically, we've had the Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. We had Ryan Preece. His incident with who was that? And I can't even remember who it was. But so a lot of tempers have been flaring here lately. Prime Television. I mean, what do you guys thoughts, especially on the Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson situation? Is that going to come back and bite one of these drivers down the road? Is it settled? These are two friends. And any other maybe get backs that we should be expecting as we start through the dog days of summer.
We all know it's hot out there. It's not climate change, it's weather. It's twice as hot in those cars as it is for us sitting in the seats. So, yes, those guys are going to be short-tempered. That said, we are also 4 races away from the race for the championship.
Right.
And tempers are short because of that. So I expect to see a lot more on-track sparks through the next 4 races, but also through the rest of the season.
So get back season is officially a go.
Yep.
I love it. Dad, what are your thoughts?
The whole thing with Hamlin and Larson, I think Larson's too much of a chicken shiznit to do anything. But
ass. Come on, little pansy ass, throw your bucks up. Come on. Let's see your dudes.
If there's anything if Larson even does anything, I feel like he would get it when it would matter most. And it's either going to be championship 4 if those two get there, or if both of those drivers are in a do-or-die type of situation in one of the rounds of the playoffs. But like I said, I think Larson's too much of a chicken shiznit to freaking do anything.
NASCAR needs a villain. And Kyle Busch isn't the villain anymore. Is Kyle Larson the new villain?
No.
Or is Denny Hamlin the new villain?
No. Larson's too much of a pussy. Hamlin is the villain.
No. He can drive the hell out of a race car, but I wouldn't put odds on him for any match. I believe his old lady kicks his ass. She definitely does when she's drinking beer like she does.
I've been a Larson fan for years, but you know what? Since he came back, he's scared. He's too much of a pussy.
Yep. Yeah, and like one of the most liked people in the garage at one time, and I feel like that since he's come back and since he's found the success and the hysteria that's been behind him, he's really not made very many friends in the Cup Series. He's actually made quite a few enemies. Even his friends. Yeah, he wants to say that everybody knows who Denny is. Well, that's right. And Denny's not necessarily the most liked character either at all, ever. He's never been the most liked guy in his own damn team. We know who Denny Hamlin is. Who is Kyle Larson? To say that, Denny should be apologetic anytime, right? I mean, this guy hasn't won a championship. As a matter of fact, if Denny Hamlin wins a championship this year, it's because he's finally become aggressive enough to win it. Maybe that's been Denny Hamlin's problem. He's never been aggressive enough.
Right.
But Kyle Larson had the best team in NASCAR just handed over to him. So, I mean, I don't, that's my feelings on it.
No, I agree. Maybe that's what Denny's been missing, is that he's just been too much of a pussy all these years.
Yeah. Looks like he's got a pretty big backbone these days, especially with his podcast. I mean, what better way to face your fears, right, than to come on to a podcast the weekend and talk shit about your competitors? I mean, Dale Jr. retired, right? And Dale Jr. has said, look, sometimes I'm going to say things that you guys don't like. Well, Denny Hamlin's had a podcast for 6 months. He has said many things that people didn't like. But, it has been straightforward. It's been hard. So I've never been a Denny Hamlin fan. Of course, that's odd, too, because I'm always, I always loved the grassroots racer. I always loved the guy who didn't necessarily have the big bucks rolling in, the guy who actually had to race his way in. He told Joe Gibbs at a young age he was going to win a championship for him. He hasn't won that yet, but, man, this guy's won 50-plus races. He's won 50 races with Joe Gibbs. He's been a long-time, lifelong driver. I actually have become more tolerant and like of Denny Hamlin. Like, that's been my biggest surprise of 2023. I did not have that on my bingo card. Being a fan of Denny Hamlin. But I love his podcast.
Yeah, it seems like Denny has really stepped up since Kyle left the team. That says a lot.
To think that he was overshadowed for all of those years by a guy who come in to this race team after Denny Hamlin had already made his debut. He played second fiddle to Kyle Busch for all these years, and now he's the cock of the walk. He's the head guy in charge. He's the steward. He is the guy that's been there. And I think he's doing a great job. And a veteran, I mean, we've made fun of him, Two-Finger Hamlin. Look, like I said, never had it in my bingo cards that I would be a Denny Hamlin fan. The podcast caught me completely off guard. I listened to it the first time thinking, this is probably going to be boring as heck. And I'm willing to give Dirty Mo Media, a listen, right? There's several content makers on Dirty Mo Media. I've never even listened to their show. What brought me to the table was Denny Hamlin, the driver, from his perspective. And I have not been disappointed since. I mean, it's been a great investment of my time to listen week in, week out to Denny Hamlin. With that being said.
Well, real quick, it's a really interesting dynamic to look into Joe Gibbs Racing as far as who have been the dominant, quote-unquote, favorite drivers and where they are now from where they were several years ago. Because I look back to when Joey Logano took over the 20 from Tony Stewart. Logano was treated like the redheaded stepchild.
Right.
So, in looking at the dynamic of Busch and Hamlin and how Hamlin is now, the leader of the team, who has more experience, who has more time, him or Truex? But Hamlin is the one who's gotten bold since Busch has left. So there's a lot to be said there for the team dynamics.
Right. Yeah. Temper's flaring. I'm sure we have not seen the end of it. Bubba Wallace, he's been known to lose his temper. He seemed to have a pretty good head on his shoulder this past weekend. But any given weekend, we can have something flare up. Some get-backs, I think, that are still out there that are going to be coming up. We should start seeing those pretty soon. But, hey, tempers and temperature, they go hand in hand. Let's move on to our final subject of the night. We're moving in a pretty good manner. We'll try to stay on track here. SRX Series, the SRX Series. Taz Taylor, you know a lot about the SRX Series. Of course, big news this week. Ken Schrader still doesn't know how to drive, and everything's Paul Tracy's fault.
Well, normally I would agree with you, Chris, but here I'm not, because if you listen to Paul Tracy's interview and you look at the replay of what happened at Motor Mile this past Thursday night, Paul Tracy claims somebody clipped him to make him run up the track and slam Newgarden into the wall, causing not only Tracy and Newgarden to wreck, but also Ken Schrader to wreck with basically nowhere to go behind them.
I'm not racing him no more.
But nobody touched Paul Tracy. Paul Tracy's sitting here blaming somebody else for hooking him, but nobody touched him. And honestly, I knew it was going to be a matter of time before SRX had to step in with Paul Tracy, because I like his aggressive driving, but if you're going to be aggressive to the point where you're going to be wrecking these cars on a consistent basis, something needs to be done. And I feel like it shouldn't have gotten as far as Ken Schrader literally going on air and saying, I'm not racing with him on track anymore. Now, the suspension of Paul Tracy has not been said if it was for one race or the rest of the season. Obviously, as far as we know of right now, Johnny Benson Jr.
Dude got fired.
Well, they never said he got fired either. They just said he's suspended. But again, there's no details of the suspension. But either way, as far as we know of right now, this week, Johnny Benson Jr. Will be replacing Paul Tracy this week. And like I said, God only knows if Tracy's gone for one race or if he's done for the season. Nobody knows. SRX never released that detail. However, some people believe they should have tried to grab an open-wheel driver. And when that comment was made a few times, Don Hawk mentioned that they tried getting a few open-wheel guys, and I guess whoever they tried getting, they couldn't get. And because of limited availability and things like that, they just had to go with basically the first available guy they could get to. And obviously Johnny Benson was the guy to make the call.
Who thought when they said Johnny Benson Jr. that we were going to see the debut of Johnny Benson's kid?
I know I did.
In his entire whatever career that guy had, I never knew him as Johnny Benson Jr. I knew him as Johnny Benson. And he wasn't that great of a race car driver. As a matter of fact, I think he was best known for getting fired after winning a truck championship. But also probably was pretty well known for the white race car, the number 10, that Scott Riggs also piloted. That was really good at super speedways. Imagine that.
Yeah, the Valvoline number
Johnny,
10.
Yeah, he actually raced it before it had Valvoline on the side of it, so it was just a white race car. But, when they said Johnny Benson Jr., I was like, oh, cool, we're getting a young guy, right? Yeah, Johnny Benson Jr., that must be Johnny Benson's kid, man. Heck yeah, I hadn't heard about this guy. And then here's Johnny Benson. I think they were using a photo from 1996 when he was in the Cheerios fucking car. there ain't no way that guy still looks like that 30 years later. And the last I'd heard of Johnny Benson, he was Danica Patrick's driving coach. I'm like, did SRX just send out some pigeons and he was the first one to reply back? I mean, what is going on here? Oh, I ain't even going to get Taz fired up on this one, though.
I mean,
how about the Cool Speedway? How about the Thunder Speedway or whatever it was, Thunder Road? That was an amazing facility. I loved watching racing there. I want to see more from that place.
We didn't go to Thunder Road. Remember, that's the Vermont track that got moved to Stafford. We went to.
Oh, I watched it on Flow Racing. That's right. I watched Thunder Road on Flow Racing. Man, that was so much fun. That was an amazing track. Berlin is cool too.
Yeah, going to Berlin this week, but Motor Miles put on a pretty good track. I know. I guess drivers were told before they took any like practice laps or any racing or whatever. They were told by some of the local drivers that, and even David Stremme, who is basically like the test driver for SRX, they pretty much said that stay off the apron. It's not the place you want to be to catch grip. Well, the SRX cars did something that everyone basically told them not to do, and Clint Boyer was basically the big guy of it. They ran the apron on that high bank track, and it seemed like that high groove probably would have worked had they, tried running it more often, but it looked like the inside towards the apron was basically the best bet to go on that track. Still think it was a pretty good race, aside from the giant wreck fest that Paul Tracy says somebody else caused him, but
well, definitely Ryan Newman looks like he's not missing a beat. Like, that guy can wheel the hell out of a race car. Kenny Schrader's a has-been, never was. Even coming on there and thinking that he's so relevant that we could give a shit if he races next week.
Yeah, when they do, what is it, those like driver introductions when they go through the starting grid, it's like I can understand Hailie Deegan, like her one main accomplishment is like, most popular driver with the Truck Series. Like, that one's understandable. She's got a young career, But like the other drivers lined up, they're like, oh, we're Cup Series champions or Daytona 500 champion or IndyCar 500 champion or IndyCar Series champion, something like that cool deal. Then you have Schrader. Well, I'm a Daytona 500 multiple time pole winner. Who the fuck gives a shit?
Right. Oh man. I mean, the guy's more known for cutting his thumb off than being behind the race car. And look, he's done crazy things out on the dirt track, but what never gets told is people like Kenny Wallace and Kenny Schrader to come to your racetrack, there's a check written to them to show up. And it has been that way for a very long time. They feel like they bring the crowd, and they used to. They really did. When they were coming out of the Cup Series and the spotlight, they really did kind of fire up the crowd at the racetracks when they showed up. But these days, it's really just a gentleman's fee that they're paying these guys to show up at your racetrack. So don't think that when Kenny Schrader shows up, there wasn't a big check written before he got there. He's probably taking home more than the guy who wins the race that night, just for a show up fee. But there it is.
Right,
SRX
Chris,
Series.
but you might be right, Chris, but Kenny Schrader's got a big fan base, a huge fan base. And the fact that he's still racing in different things so frequently, a lot of people do come out to see him.
Hey, if it still gives you a thrill, former 2-time Daytona pole champion Ken Schrader, then y'all come on out and buy us a seat at the local dirt track. As for me, I would be more impressed if Clint Boyer showed up than a washed-up Kenny Schrader. But there are some good drivers in this series, as Tad said. They have done a lot better job this year in making sure that there is some actual star power. But like every other series, there's always the field fillers. And Hailie Deegan, Kenny Schrader, so these guys are field fillers, and that's just the way it is. Johnny Benson Jr. will be a field filler.
Right.
I think everybody else kind of has.
The thing I see with Hailie Deegan, like, I give her props for trying to, give yourself track time and, try to develop yourself, not only through the truck series, but also try to learn, but also try to, learn the racecraft from the best in the business of either today or yesterday. But, I mean, I'm sorry, but she should not be. I think she's either last or second to last in the full-time championship points or whatever. She should be running up there, I would feel like, but I don't know if she's just performing bad in the heat that the features can't make up for that ground, because she's got decent feature finishes. It's just that the heat races, she's lackluster. And I know I remember her saying in one of her SRX racing documentaries or vlogs or whatever she does for YouTube, but I remember her saying that in one of the heat races, like, it got to be so aggressive that she just decided to back out because she wanted to save her equipment. That's great, but at the same time, if you're going to be in it to win a championship, trying to make a name for yourself, then you got to do something.
Right. I agree. You got to make a move. But she has a good follower. She got a good fan base. So.
I just wanted to add to the whole Paul Tracy conversation. Coming into this series, we all knew who Paul Tracy was. We all know his reputation and everything else. So who's really surprised that he ended up suspended?
I mean, really, I think all of us should be surprised. Well, I mean, it was played up, right? Michael Waltrip and Paul Tracy were pinned against each other the very first race of the SRX series. I'm more surprised that he did get suspended, right? I mean, I'm more surprised that he did get in trouble because, I mean, you want entertainment. And Paul Tracy's probably been the most entertaining driver.
Yes. Paul Tracy did give the entertainment value. Absolutely. His no holds barred, balls to the walls attitude made for some exciting racing.
Yeah, now you're kicking the guy out, I don't know. And replacing him with a Johnny Benson Jr. I mean, come on.
Right.
Put the guy
the
guy who's your track champion in that car. My God.
Chris,
give the street stock driver a chance.
Look at the other bigger names that they have gotten into the series now. Now they've got the attraction of popular NASCAR drivers, popular drivers from the other series. So maybe they don't need Paul anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
Their excuse.
Yeah, I mean, you got a point. I mean, Chris, we literally said a year ago when it came to SRX that if they wanted to grow and keep going, they had to figure out a way to get current stars or try to grab drivers from different series besides just IndyCar and NASCAR to come run for the series. And they did, in the sense of this year, they got Brad Keselowski full-time. They made Hailie Deegan jump from part-time to full-time. They got Kyle Busch, who's who's running 2 races. Kevin Harvick's running 3, I believe.
You say Bobby Labonte, I'm going to run my head in the wall.
Oh, no. Bobby Labonte's been with SRX with racing prior, but
he's trash.
But you also got Ron Capps from the drag racing series, and I think he's the first true NHRA guy that SRX has grabbed. Granted, it's only for 1 race, but I mean, it's still it's a different outlet. This week they're going to have Casey Kane for a one-off. I mean, granted, Casey Kane, most people know him from NASCAR, but now he's got World of Outlaws, the sprint car side of things, so he could be dragging in people from there. But the one thing that Tony Stewart said, that SRX has not completely succeeded yet, and he says that he believes SRX will completely succeed, is when he will sign either one of these 2 drivers or both, and that's going to be Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Jeff Gordon.
Wow, would Junior do that? I don't know.
I feel like Junior could probably do it for. I feel like Junior could for a while.
Amy won't let him.
Fear that he'll want to do more. I agree with Lee.
I feel like he would do a one-off.
Maybe a one-off for sure, but Tony's talking about signing him to a full-time, and he would want that exposure. And I believe Jeff Gordon has too many irons in the fire in other places. He's not. I agree. These are two Chevrolet guys that you're probably, their lifelong commitment to Chevrolet will probably keep them out of this series just because they're not Chevrolet power plants. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. It would definitely increase the ratings if you got either one of those guys. And probably Dale Jr. a little bit more than Jeff Gordon. I feel like there's a love affair with the Junior Nation. Always has been. Of course, Gordon, he's carried the sport as well. But Junior reigned even in Gordon's presence. So I think Junior would definitely be the higher seed if that were the case. And it's interesting that Tony Stewart said that. He is definitely. Where's Ray Evernham in all this? Has Ray Evernham kind of been kicked to the side this year? We haven't heard much about Ray.
Yeah, we have not heard much from Ray this year at all. It's all been Tony and what's the other guy's name? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
The Hawk guy, Don Hawk or whatever?
Yeah. I don't see either Dale or Jeff doing more than a one-off, if even that. I would bet we'd see Dale before we'd see Jeff.
Right, yes. My only take of the SRX right now is it's great that they grabbed current drivers or drivers that probably either retired or were let go of their rides but still have it. To name a couple off like that would be Newman and Foyer, for example. But my only thing with that is with SRX, I feel like, to me, you have to go back with season 1 of Ray Evernham, where you have 10 full-time drivers. Your 11th car is a superstar ringer, regardless of whatever series they came from. If it's a 1-race or 2-race deal, like how season 1, that gold car, it was the superstar ringer car where you had Greg Biffle for Stafford and I want to say Slinger was the other one. You had Scott Bloomquist on Knoxville, so you brought in the World of Outlaws in that deal. And then you had Scott Speed, which obviously, of course, people knew Scott Speed from NASCAR, but he's also got rallycross background, so there's something there as well.
You need to go back to the one car reserved for a local track driver.
Yeah. I mean, one car for a champion from some division, like, you know, whether it be the IndyCar champion, the Cup Series champion, possibly, Formula One champion, Max Verstappen, the motocross champion. You just and then one, your local house driver champion.
What made SRX so fun the first season was that it was not necessarily dominated by NASCAR drivers.
Right.
You had a really good mix, and then you had that car for the local track driver.
Yes.
That's what made it so exciting.
And I would also feel like they could have grabbed a dirt guy too, like IROC made it possible to grab somebody from World of Outlaws. But it's only for one race. But I would like to see
Kenny Schrader is a dirt guy.
But what I'm saying, Chris, is that with IROC, they grabbed. Why hasn't SRX capitalized on grabbing a World of Outlaws guy to do the same thing, regardless if it's from late models or sprint cars, or could be somebody from the midgets,
Didn't Bloomquist drive one year?
He drove for one race.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to think of like different mixes. Like it's great for NASCAR and IndyCar. I mean, this year it's primarily NASCAR, but I just want the full-time mix, as you mentioned. Like I would like to see Ron Capps run a full season, or say Brittany Force, or even bring in, like I said, a World of Outlaws star for a full season. How can they handle the short tracks of asphalt?
Well, not necessarily even a full season, but make a car where you're mixing it up a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm just all for the series growing and want to see the step in the direction that have this series around for a while. I know that there's going to be kinks and stuff that they need to do to make it better. And, obviously we're following this series into the third season. So we all like the series. We think that it's a really good series. And look, being able to see these tracks, I'm going to look for them on Flow Racing. Just as I did Thunder Road, I clicked into there because that was the race where, that was supposed to be in the SRX series. Kaz, of course, reminded me of that I wasn't watching the SRX series. I was actually watching Flow Racing. But Berlin, Stafford has become one of my favorites. I didn't even know Stafford existed until the SRX series. So I'm thankful for the SRX series because they have opened the door to these other racetracks that I can find on Flow Racing and watch, all year long. Like I don't think I've missed a season race at all from Stafford in the last 2 years. Like I enjoy watching them that much, and I've added several others to my list thanks to the SRX series. So as long as they continue to grow and put people that are worth watching into those seats, I'm for it. All right, Taz Taylor, it's Taz's picks. We're rolling into Michigan. I swear I wanted to cut the show back to 1 hour, but just once we get to talking,
all right,
we could go into 3 hours, I swear. But Taz, let's go into Taz's picks. This is Michigan. I'm not sure if this is one of those tracks where, we're only going to it one time, This is the second year, I believe, that we're only going through it one time. I believe that kind of changes the dynamic of this racetrack. And so you see more of the, I guess, more of the drivers from middle pack that could possibly be better at this track than what you would expect them to be. Taz, carry it from here, sir.
So we are headed to Michigan, and before I read off my favorites, contenders, and underdogs for opening up to you guys, I want to mention this because I found this stat and I had to, fact check it and make sure it was actually true. And it is. So I've made that fact true, and I kind of went a little further with it. So in the last 12 Michigan races, Ford has won 9 of those last 12, including the last 8 straight races. The last 8 races in a row, Ford has won. Of those 9 races, one driver has won 5 of those. And he even got the 2020 sweep at Michigan. That is Kevin Harvick. And who is the defending winner of this race?
Kevin Harvick.
So, with that being said, my favorites right now looking is Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, and Joey Logano. Contenders, Brad Keselowski, William Byron, Ryan Blaney. Eric Jones, Bubba Wallace, and Eric Almirola I have listed as underdogs. With that being said, the panel is now open.
Yeah, MTJ is the hottest driver in the Cup Series right now. I did not hear his name on that list, so I would definitely add him to the favorites. I'm not sure that he has the stats that prove it, though. Taz Taylor, can you enlighten me on the stats? MTJ. MTJ.
All right. MTJ. I do not have him on the list. He has 32 Michigan starts, winless at this track, 10 top 5, 15 top 10s, an average finish of 13.5.
Yeah, but he's the hottest driver in NASCAR right now. I mean, without a doubt.
Well, we can easily put him as a favorite with how he's been performing in the last number of races this year.
Of course, you have to put, the Ford drivers are going to be, of course, favored a lot in this one. I didn't know if I heard Brad Keselowski, and I know Brad Keselowski's been part of this 9-win streak.
Brad Keselowski, he's listed as a contender, also winless, but has less top 5s and top 10s as Martin Truex, though. He only has 7 top 5s, 13 top 10s. But he does have a better average finish. Not by much, though.
Ms. Lee, are you willing to throw battle here?
Where does Ty Gibbs sit with mile and a half?
Yeah, like I've not known Toyota to have much success here. I think Toyota, this may be their worst track. And I'm not sure why Ford dominates so much here. What's the top 10? I think that's probably my question from last year. I mean, let me just say, I'm going to go check out the top 10 from last year.
Trying to think of other drivers to list off here for you. Kyle Busch, he does have 1 win here. So do we place him as a favorite, contender?
Definitely a contender, probably. So Denny Hamlin fell here. The Toyota does run pretty decent. It's Chevrolet that's completely fallen off. Kyle Busch definitely. I mean, Kyle's a top 5 driver in the Cup Series. There's without a doubt he deserves somewhere on this list. Hamlin, I think, deserves somewhere on this list. Bubba Wallace has had success here. Ryan Blaney.
Bubba Wallace, I don't know about Bubba Wallace at Michigan.
Yeah, he had a runner-up.
Bubba Wallace, I hate to tell you, his stats do not favor him very well. Only one top 5 and two top 10s.
Coming off a second place finish though last year.
I mean, I could see him as probably an underdog at this rate.
Eric Amarola, another Ford driver.
He's listed as an underdog.
What about Ross Chastain? And
Bubba Wallace
Preece?
Bubba Wallace is already listed as an underdog. Ryan Preece could be a good argument. Trying to look at more of see if we can snag one favorite or one contender into this list here. Denny Hamlin?
Yeah, Hamlin could be a favorite for sure.
He does have 2 wins at this track.
That's good.
Another underdog I want to throw in. You mentioned Ross Chastain. I would say a contender. I think something's off with him. Either he's riding way too high and thought too high of himself from last year in comparison to this year. I don't know. He could be a contender. I know we mentioned earlier Chase Elliott in the early part of the show. Chase Elliott does have the best average finish of all Cup drivers with an 8.0. In 12 races, he has 3 top 5s, but he has 10 top 10s to back it up. So there's Chase Elliott floating around. There's Ross Chastain floating around we could throw in. Amigo, Daniel Suarez is 2 top 5s and 2 top 10s. We could throw him as an underdog.
What about Michael McDowell?
Busher? Yeah, there you go. Busher or McDowell, one or the other.
Busher only has 1 top 10 at this track, and McDowell. Wow, Chastain has not recorded a single top 10 at Michigan. Has a 29.8 average finish. Yikes. McDowell in 16 Michigan races hasn't even recorded a top 10 finish. A 30.4 average finish. So it's looking like McDowell and Chastain are... At this point, honestly, I would list Chase Elliott as a contender and probably throw... you know what? I'll throw in the boat of Daniel Suarez as an underdog.
Yeah, I think you're missing the boat of one of those HR cards. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I mean Chase Briscoe's probably going to run good here. Preece is going to run good here.
Well, the list is full.
Blaney's going to run good.
Well, the list is full, but we can still mention drivers. Since we have a couple minutes before we close out, but. Briscoe has a 15.5 average finish, has not recorded a single top 10 in 2 starts. So, I mean, you could throw him as an underdog if you really wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we could throw the whole list of drivers, I guess, in somewhere in this pot. I don't know. Michigan, we've got several unique racetracks coming up that, it's going to be kind of a crapshoot for a couple of them. I think Michigan's a big question mark. I really do. You expected Ford to do good, but 9 straight wins? Come on, How can you continue that, right? I mean, really. Somebody's going to try to beat them. Toyota's knocking on all cylinders right now. Christopher Bell's name wasn't even mentioned. Christopher Bell has cooled off a lot. Funny to hear Ty Gibbs' name and not Christopher Bell. But I do have something that I want to bring to the table real quick. And I'm going to squeeze this in at the end of the episode. It has been brought to my attention that maybe some – go ahead.
So here's a bad stat that does not favor Toyota for Michigan. The last time Toyota won at Michigan was all the way back at the fall race. I guess you can consider it the fall race, even though it was ran in August. The last time Toyota won was in August of 2015 at this track, and that was Matt Kenseth.
Wow. A long time ago.
And prior to that, the last time Toyota won before that, if you want to go further back, that is 2011 in August by Kyle Busch.
Wow.
And I will say this. So, while Ford's won the last 8 races at Michigan combined, the 3 previous races before that was won by Chevy, and that is by Kyle Larson. All 3 of them by Kyle Larson.
I was in Chip Ganassi years, right?
I think it was with his Ganassi days.
Yeah. So that means we can potentially rule Toyota out as winners.
I mean,
given those stats.
We could do that, but I mean, it's hard to take away from what Truex and Hamlin have done in the last number of races too.
Right.
Because I mean, really,
not been,
those because other than Bubba
Wallace,
Wallace, who's listed as an underdog on our list right now, Truex and Hamlin are the only 2 Toyotas we have on this list.
Damn. Well, that's it. That'll do it. 2 minutes till time. What a great night, man. Glad to have everybody back on board. I feel like the show went flawlessly. I hope that it's been enjoyed by those who are listening. If not, maybe we'll do better next time. I definitely feel like we did a lot better than we did last week. That was a big mess up by my end, and I apologize. But this week went flawless, and I appreciate you guys and all the hard work, being prepared and everything, man. It's just cool. Maybe one day we'll get Craig Moore back. I think he's enjoying his new endeavors, being a radio host guy. I'll tell you what, he's doing a damn good job at it too. So good for Craig and his newfound love and passion. We knew he was going to do good if he ever got that chance. I remember telling him when he was still in New York, hey, you ought to make that move to Florida. You don't have anything to lose. And I think it's worked out pretty well for him. Unfortunately, it's cut his involvement with us down a lot. But, hey, we want everybody to be successful in any endeavor. So we're looking forward to having Craig back on really soon. We miss you, buddy. But just keep on trucking like you're doing, man. You're doing a great job. Taz, appreciate you, man. This is what, year number 4 for you? 4 or 5? Taz, you've been around for, you no longer a greenhorn around here, that's for sure.
Trying to think when I remember first joining on, I want to say, I think it was like 2019 is when I like partially joined. I could be wrong on that one. I would say about
it's been a while.
Probably about 3-4 years, roughly.
Miss Lee, you've been such a great addition. I know that you've been going through a lot in your own personal life, and just having you here and getting to talk to you and fellowship with you week in, week out means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to you, and just being helping the show continue on. I don't know where we would be if we didn't have you part of it, but just keep it on hanging in there. We love you, Miss Lee, and I'm sorry that you're getting your ass kicked in the fantasy.
I'm telling you, it's
I'm blaming that. I'm blaming that, like Taz said, on the fact that I won last year, so it's my year to slump. But thank you, and I love you guys too.
It's winner's curse. I've been down that road.
I'm picking Kyle Busch for the rest of the season as I try to catch Jason McMullen. So I think that's my strategy from here on out. I'm just going to pick Kyle Busch and hope for the best. How about that?
I mean, most of the time he picks them anyway.
I know, right? Exactly. So, yeah. Have a great night. Thank y'all for listening to Race Chat Live. Of course, the link will pop up with the podcast page. We did things a little bit different. We're going to post the show links when the show goes live, similar to the way other podcasts do. Most of the time, you get the pod drop. That's when the show comes out. Of course, we've always wanted to try to get the live listeners. I feel like that's just a continuous disaster to try to get the live listeners. We need to focus back on the podcast side of things. And, if the guys decide to join us, they'll know where to find us on the live broadcast. So we're going to try this and see if it creates any stir, if it creates any difference. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it don't. I do have some plans ahead to run a background of our Street Stock Nationals race. I haven't decided whether or not it's going to be for the main event or if it's just going to be like a Friday night or Thursday night to kind of see how if people click onto it. But I have thought about seeing into the live broadcast with an upcoming race here. As we're rolling in our biggest time of the season here at the House of Hill down at Why Not Motorsports Park. But we'll keep our eyes open on see how that goes, and I'll let you guys know the final decision there. But Taz, take it from here, man. Let's close it out, buddy.
All right. We want to thank everyone for listening along to Race Chat Live here on Blog Talk Radio. If you ever miss our live shows, you can always catch us on any forms of podcast, such as Blog Talk Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, RSS Feed, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, GeoSaven, Podcast Addict, Deezer, Podchaser, and on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, go over to the 110 Nation Sports YouTube channel, subscribe there. Hopefully content will be coming out in the next few weeks. I know it's been slow in the last 2 to 3 weeks, but hopefully things will get back to rolling within the next week or two. We want to thank our sponsors who make the 110 Nation roll: Bears Bullish Market, Talk Group, Carolina Sports Plus, Yellow Caution Flag Productions, More to Music, Karaoke, and Entertainment, and TNT Designs. We want to thank everyone for listening on to Race Chat Live. We'll see you the same bat time, same bat place next Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. This has been the Caution Flag of Racing Radio. Chris Creighton, the Mama Bear of the 110 Nation, Miss Lee Reed. I am the Tasmanian Devil, Flaggers Taz Taylor. Saying good night. We'll see y'all next week.
Good night, everybody.